typically, we're not interested in the odds, we're interested in the odds ratio. If we have one group of people, we can figure out what are the odds of something happening to them. If we have two groups of people, we can figure out the odds of something happening to each group, but we can also compare the groups by dividing one set of odds by the other. So what we're typically doing is looking at, is one group more or less likely to have a positive outcome than another group based on either something about the two groups, whether one of those groups got an intervention and the other didn't, one has a risk factor and the other doesn't. And if the odds are about the same for both groups, you'll get an odds ratio about equal to 1. And that means whatever you're comparing between the two groups didn't have a big effect on the outcome. If you're much different than 1, either much lower than 1 or much greater than 1, then whatever it is you're studying did have a big impact on the odds of a positive outcome. So to be a little more concrete, imagine we're looking at wheelchair users who do pressure relief, these might be manual wheelchair users who regularly do a push-up, every 15 minutes to make sure that they're changing the pressure distribution on their cushion, and whether or not these people develop pressure sores. So if we look at 650 wheelchair users who have pressure sores and 650 patients without pressure sores, and we find out that 350 of these people performed pressure relief and didn't get pressure sores, and 140 people did perform pressure relief but still got a pressure sore anyways, then the odds of getting a pressure sore if you perform pressure relief is 350 to 140. Amongst the people that didn't perform pressure relief, maybe 300 of them didn't get pressure sores and 510 of them did. The odds there are 300 to 510, and the odds ratio is 4.24. What that means is that performing pressure relief makes you 4.24 times more likely not to get a pressure sore, our positive outcome. We can also look at confidence intervals of odds ratios. So here's the formula for odds ratios. It's the odds of a positive outcome with the intervention over the odds of a positive outcome without the intervention. If the odds ratio is equal to 1, that means there's no difference between these two odds. There's really no effect of this intervention. So what we want to see is a confidence interval that is entirely outside of 1. So either entirely below or entirely above. If our confidence interval for the odds ratio includes 1, then we can't say there is an effect with 95% certainty. Here's an example of a study from AJOT that used odds ratios. So in this case, they were looking at general occupational rehabilitation and the odds of a positive outcome. And here they found that for their female clients, they were 0.186 times as likely to have a positive outcome as the male clients. And you can see from the confidence interval, the max is below 1, so they're 95% sure there's some effect. and that effect is somewhere in this range. Similarly, for work simulation, the clients that got work simulation were 6.369 times more likely to have a positive outcome than people who didn't. And you can see from the confidence interval that the potential range is huge. So they know there's an effect because one is outside the confidence interval. It might be as small as 1.46 and might be as large as 27.5, meaning somebody who gets a work simulation is actually 27.5 times more likely to get a positive outcome than somebody who doesn't. But for the sample that they looked at, the odds ratio was 6.36. So that means the people in their sample who got work simulation were 6.369 times more likely to have a positive outcome than the people who didn't.